Welcome to another edition of Empty the Bench. It's episode number 49. I'm Albano along with Nick Morgasen, and we're going to be doing a lot of COVID talk this week. More baseball, more COVID. It's become the norm, this norm of sports culture at this point.
Oh, well, it's kind of expected. And if you followed me on social media, you see it below. I've been very animate. Maybe that's the word I want to go with right now because I've gone off on Rob Manfred, who I think at this point doesn't have a clue how to handle COVID protocols when it comes to keeping these players safe. And we'll get into an interview that I did earlier this week, actually, also with Mike Ferrin of MLB Network Radio, who really told me a lot of interesting things. But where do we start?
All right. Well, first of all, before we get into that, we do have a bit of an update on a unfortunate situation involving an ex-Angels pitcher, Tyler Skaggs, who tragically passed away. That was last season, correct?
I think that was last season, yeah.
All right. So an ex-Angels public relations employee, I believe you had the name.
Eric K.
Eric K. was charged with pretty much supplementing Skaggs with the drugs that he ended up overdosing on.
Well, I think he gave him one of the little blue pills, but it was traced with fentanyl. And apparently nobody knew that it was traced with fentanyl. And it was one of those little, let me slip this under the table, so to speak, type of thing. And the rest of it is history, so to speak.
No words. No words. I mean, the only good emotional thing that ever came out of that was the combined no-hitter that was tossed in the immediate aftermath of his passing. But just a tragic loss with a pitcher just gone too soon, who honestly could have had a more long-term career than he ended up having, unfortunately.
I feel like baseball has a lot of issues, and we'll get into them, but unfortunately, like I guess some of these athletes don't think before they make decisions. And actually, that's kind of ironic because we're going to talk about a certain pitcher who didn't use their brains before making a decision. But this guy, Eric K., who is a PR employee for the Angels, he should go away and do time. And I'm talking about hard
I think
time.
he will. I think he will. With the charges he's going to get, it is going to be a while. And the irony, he's a PR employee.
Yeah, well, you can't make that one up, that someone who's supposed to be promoting and making sure the team is in the right limelight, and you, I'm not going to say he killed it because you can't really say that. You would say in the whole journalism realm, you can't say that.
No.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. All right. So now let's get on to situations involving COVID-19. So as you teased in our intro, earlier this week, you did an interview with an old friend of ours, in Mike Ferrin, who you can listen to on MLB Network Radio on Sirius XM.
Power Alley, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern, every single day, Monday through Friday, with Jim Duquette, who is a former GM with the Orioles, the Mets, and a bunch of other teams. So,
and any of you out there in Arizona also know him for the Diamondbacks pre- and post-game shows.
Yes. And just so you know, this guy has a lot of energy in a good way, and he's very passionate about the sport of baseball. And if you go back and you watch some of the questions that were asked, I was very upfront. Now, let me put something out there first of all. I can't take credit for the whole interview. I did the interview, but there was a lot of help behind the scenes. So we all took a credit in some way getting this interview up there. So I don't want it to seem like I was the only one who really worked on this whole thing. Okay. So want to make sure that that's clear out there. So, but go ahead. What did you think of the interview when you saw it?
I thought it was pretty interesting. I thought it was interesting how on the little scoop or two that he gave us, I thought it was interesting hearing from somebody who has a actual connection to Major League Baseball. and he had a couple of opinions that are different from the normal sports media realm that we've been seeing as of late when it comes to these major league teams and COVID. So just to get into things, obviously, we've talked about this already. The Marlins having a COVID outbreak in which pretty much most of their main roster was diagnosed with COVID-19 at one point or another. And yet somehow with their AAA squad, they are 6-1 and leading the NL East.
Highest winning percentage probably in baseball right now. And like there's some of these ridiculous records like where they threw out on the first 9 days of their season, they had 9 different pitchers. That's an MLB record that they had 9 different pitchers.
And by the way, second highest in Major League Baseball right now. The first highest winning percentage is the Rockies. This is a bizarre season.
But let's get into the Marlins, because when I asked Mike Ferrin about the whole Marlins situation, I said, do you think they really went to a nightclub? Do you think they were really out schmoozing and, like I said, going to nightclubs and all that stuff? And he said he spoke to Corey Dickerson, who's an outfielder for the Marlins, and said, we didn't do anything. Now, our good friend and co-host, who doesn't hold back his opinions, Nick Federa, would say, BS, I don't understand where that's coming from, and what the heck happened?
I mean, it's interesting that we got somebody on the record to, that stated a differing opinion. Well, not a differing opinion, a differing story from what was told. So here's the story that, if you didn't listen to the interview with Mike Ferrin, first of all, please go watch that. You can find it on our Facebook page. You can find it in our video archives. But basically the story that Corey Dickerson gave Mike was that pretty much, well, from Mike's understanding, Mike's thinking, I should say, is that potentially the coronavirus may have come into the organization from one of the coaching staff members who potentially had some outside contact, with somebody that was not on the team. So my question would now be is, why are you having, if that's the story, why are you having outside contact with somebody, like if it's family, it's one thing, but if it's, some random fan on the street.
Well, this whole situation is very confusing to me in some aspects, because we spoke about another interesting thing, including the Marlins, and now it's across all the hotels in Major League Baseball. All these players have to report to truancy officers now. So if you want to leave the hotel and go out and, I guess, get a cup of coffee or buy a change of clothes or, I don't know, get food, you have to talk to your truancy officer before you can leave.
Oh, yeah. So let me bring that graphic up. So, yes. So there have been some changes to the protocols of COVID-19 in Major League Baseball. Like you said, truancy officers, you cannot leave your hotel room for any reason unless you talk to a truancy officer. You cannot exit your hotel room, with the rest of the team for any team meeting or something in the hotel lobby, unless you have the approval of the truancy officer, and all these, COVID protocols are given the thumbs up, everything is okay. It either, on the in the hotel or on, say, an airplane, if you're doing a road travel, you cannot face somebody while you are eating or drinking. If you are eating or drinking, you must physically turn away from them.
That is the most hilarious thing I ever heard. And by the way, that goes right up there with the plastic utensils also. And also the packed lunches, like being a kid, where you open up the burger in the plastic tin. And basically, and I don't know, this whole situation is crazy.
I understand the intent, but how are you going to enforce this stuff?
You can't enforce it. Let's get something very, very clear right now. Okay. Rob Manfred has done a terrible job. And I said the time before this, I didn't know if this was going to come up. This is the time it's going to come up. Rob Manfred should be fired as the commissioner of Major League Baseball right now. I'm going to keep saying it I've put campaigns up on individual social media that Rob Manfred should be fired as the commissioner because he doesn't understand the protocols of his own sport.
Well, before we get into that, we also have another outbreak we have to get to. So sorry to go back to this graphic, but now we have learned that the Cardinals have an outbreak going on, supposedly stemming from, well, first of all, it was originally reported that it was only players. That is not true. It is now a mix of players and staff. And supposedly it was a casino incident, like some couple of guys went out to a casino and brought it in. So there's that. Well, and the Cardinals have only played 6 games. 6 games this season.
Well, that's a tough situation. Well, you could say the Phillies and the Blue Jays have that same issue also. But what I was going to say is when I spoke to Ferrin, I said, do you think that the Cardinals actually went to a casino? And according to Ferrin, he thinks that the Cardinals wouldn't have gone to a casino. That's silly. Now, I don't know who to believe at this point. I don't know who to believe. I don't know who's doing what.
Like I'm just saying, it's 2020. I'm just going to put it out there. Anything is possible at this rate.
I mean, heck, right now on social media, I just saw from an hour ago that a brawl just broke out between the Astros and the A's. So, like, and wait a minute. Speaking of rules, what's one of the big rules they said when they put no brawling? That could lead to COVID-19 contraction.
Mm-hmm.
So no one's following the rules. Rob Manfred can't do his job. And the one thing, if I had one small criticism for the interview with Ferrin, when I said, what do you think of Rob Manfred and the job he's doing? Would you change anything? Now, the one part of the response that I will say that's really tough, he said, it's really tough to be the commissioner of a sport. It's really difficult. You have to make tough decisions. But the problem is, if you're not going to put proper protocols into play, how can we trust you as the commissioner of the sport?
Well, when you look at some of these new protocol things that we're talking about, some of these probably should have been in effect before the season even started.
Absolutely.
Some of these are just plain ridiculous, like we were just saying. Like, the intent is good, but unrealistically cannot be enforced when these are grown men.
But you know what? I give them credit on one front, okay? The 7-inning doubleheaders is not a bad thing for a short season. They have a lot of games to make up. They can't play 9-inning doubleheaders. They will never make it through the end of the day. And the Phillies, who I think have to make up what? Like
a bunch
of games. The Cardinals are going to be, the season's going to be over before the Cardinals make up all their games.
But this was what we were saying, like with the National League and the DH. This season is perfect for anything trial related. Removal of the designated hitter here in the National League, the 7-inning doubleheader, the runner on second in minor league rule. That one I don't like. Over in the NFL, they're not going to have a preseason this season, so they're going to try to implement that. This is the year for all the trial runs for rules.
You know what? Like I said, I like the extra inning rule because we're trying to keep these guys healthy and off the field to the best of their ability. But can we stop with the runner on second base, please? That's not a game. And also, according to statistics, if that runner scores, that doesn't count towards the ERA.
Which is good for, which is good for the pitcher in question, which is good for us who have said pitchers in fantasy baseball. But regardless, it's just, it's not baseball. It's not the traditional form of baseball. Like 7 innings, at least with the 7-inning doubleheaders, you see that in the minor leagues often. The local minor league that I'm at, that's in my town, they do the 7-inning doubleheaders.
The whole issue that we're not talking about, and I think this is one of the graphics if you have it, and I think you know where I'm going here, is the NBA and the NFL.
NHL.
The NBA and the NHL with bubble cities. I brought this up with Ferrin. He said that it probably will not be done in 2021. So I don't know how Major League Baseball is going to control itself if they're not in a bubble environment. If you look at the NBA is owning it right now inside the bubble. They haven't had a positive test since July 29th.
And I'd say, and I'm not sure if the NHL is doing as well as the NBA, but you haven't really heard anything from the NHL either. The NBA and NHL kind of killing it with this stuff. And going to that actually goes to something that we asked Mike Ferrin, and that's should the bubble city idea have been given more consideration than it got? Because I had told you and Nick in a pre-show meeting, I believe, and I actually may have said it the week before on last week's episode that there could have been maybe we could have had 3 bubble cities, one in say Arizona, one in Texas, one in Florida, but of course those ended up being COVID hotspots, so you would have had a problem regardless. But maybe you could have had it sooner before those outbreaks reached and potentially got some of the season in. Had you not dragged out the negotiations, the MLB and MLBPA negotiations in public for so long, like they did.
Well, Ferrin also said where he is in Arizona, they still have 1,000 cases a day. So I don't know how they're playing right now in Arizona. I don't know how they're playing in Florida, which was the death toll center of this virus. New York, where we are now, they've, for the most part, I think I saw today that we were like
0.7.
0.78 to be exact. So we're under 1%, which is great. And hopefully we continue on that road. But we don't have a vaccine. We don't have that whole thing figured out yet. So you're still going to see COVID scares because, like people have said in Major League Baseball, you're traveling. You're going to different cities.
Right.
In the NBA, when you're in a bubble, it's all staying in one place. By the way, people who are saying that, oh, well, you're in a bubble, so you can't get competitive sports. Look at the NBA games. They have been the most competitive games I've seen in a long time.
Look at the NHL. The NHL, out of the 8 qualifying series, 7 of them, didn't end in a sweep. 7 of them, every team, it took at least one game. The only one that ended in a sweep, unfortunately for me, was the Carolina Hurricanes New York Rangers series. And you're still going to have 16 teams going into this next round that starts tomorrow. And you're going to get all the bigger teams back. So the Washington Capitals, the Philadelphia Flyers, the Vegas Golden Knights.
Big market. Yeah. But the other thing that bothers me, and actually you just reminded me with the number 16 actually, is Major League Baseball. Half of the league is going to be in the playoffs in about, what are we, like 40 games away now or something? It's
like 2 months.
We're 2 months away, and half the league. That means you might see the Marlins make the playoffs. You might see the Orioles make the playoffs. You're going to see that shouldn't be making it.
I mean, I'll call it for what it is. They were trying to get all the big market teams in for like the higher ratings and sponsorships. So the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Cubs. The Mets, obviously, this was the best chance for the Mets to get into the postseason. It looks like they're not even going to reach it.
Well, the problem is they lost their all-star outfielder. So,
all-star outfielder.
Yeah, it's questionable. I just realized that.
But going back to this Rob Manfred thing, to just throw my opinion out there, I give credit where, like what Mike Ferrin said, in this time of COVID, where everybody's fearing of losing their job still, unemployed, Manfred actually kept, everybody at Major League Baseball employed, as many as he could. So I give him credit to that. But actually it goes back to a graphic of, that Mike Ferrin interview, which is, I'm not sure if I can judge Rob Manfred and say, everything is his fault, but it feels like MLB was not ready for this season. I think
they were not ready at all. They were so not prepped for this.
They're just winging it at this point.
And by the way, as much as I get on Rob Manfred and Major League Baseball for this, MLBPA has as much a fault here as Manfred does.
Again, it goes back to what I was saying about the negotiations. I wonder how different this season plays out if they don't drag out that negotiation for as long as they did.
Now, could we have still run into the COVID situation where we had all these COVID tests? We probably still would have, because there was no exact science of a procedure when you're traveling around on airplanes or you're traveling around on buses or trains. It doesn't matter. You could still pass it.
And maybe with the NFL, with the NFL, you're only going to be traveling 8 times in a season. But with the NBA and the NHL having their success with the bubbles and Major League Baseball and the hellfire that it's in now, I give a lot of questions as to what's going to happen with this NFL season. Because think about that. How we say we're just 2 months away from the MLB playoffs. We're 5 weeks away from the start of the NFL season.
Which is crazy as it sounds. And I'll throw one thing just because it fits the conversation. College football is on the verge of being canceled, actually.
The Power 5 conferences, yeah, another breaking update. We don't have anything for it right now, but the Power 5 conferences are in a meeting, and they're talking about,
the MAC already canceled.
Right. I would say most of the conferences and the NCAA have either canceled fall sports and are going to move them to the spring, or they're going to have conference-only things. So, like I said last week, we might have a year of sports where we're not going to have an NCAA basketball final, and we're not going to have an NCAA football national championship.
But let's make sure we get to one more story because we totally forgot about it here.
Yeah,
wait a minute. I'm not even talking about that one. We didn't get to the Indians story either.
Oh, yes. Okay.
We got to go there first. So you broke the story. I just saw it when you put it up. So you say what happened.
Okay. So we have an Indians pitcher.
Zach Plesac.
Yeah, Zach Plesac, who, conveniently enough, as we were just talking about with the protocols, he broke protocol. He apparently, according to Ken Rosenthal on The Athletic, went out in Chicago, with friends, a night on the town, and the Cleveland Indians have told him, because he has violated team rules and protocol, go home.
Ouch.
And honestly, if it were me, I don't know what his pay situation is going to be, but I tell him go home without pay. Because be honest with me.
What are you doing? What are you actually doing?
Right. If you told all these guys, hey, if you catch COVID and it's your fault and you have to quarantine, or, even if you don't get COVID and you still have to, undergo quarantine just in case. If you told them you were going to take away the pay, watch how quickly everybody changes.
Well, yeah, that's basically saying, if you're not going to put food on my table, then maybe I'll be more attent when I make a decision. But I said to Tom before we started, I thought Lou Williams was the dumbest athlete of all time, leaving the NBA bubble, going to strip club to get the wings that are named after him. I think I have relinquished that title from Lou Williams and have given it to Zach Plesac.
I don't know. I mean, because he said, "Oh, I only went to the strip club for the wings."
Well, that's not really believable either by any stretch. But what happened to truant's officer? Truant's officer, how did you get past the truant's officer?
I don't know, but I hope somebody snitched on Lou Williams to Silver. Oh, by the way, another report that I just saw briefly. So it's the snitch line, for the NBA players to
the bat phone. Yes.
Yeah. Well, apparently the NFL is now considering one to.
Oh no!
To the Ginger Hammer.
No. All right, wait a minute. Okay, we're going to run out of time. All right, speaking of the NFL, we have an adjacent story to it. Go ahead.
As the graphic says, hey, Nick, do you smell what The Rock is cooking?
Oh, jeez. Now you're making up the cliche statements now?
So apparently The Rock, in coordination with an investor group, has purchased the XFL from Vince McMahon for a good $15 million.
Okay, I'm about to blow your mind right now. Do you know who one of the people is in his investment group?
Who?
His ex-wife. His ex-wife is his investment partner.
I mean, if it works, it works. Hey, could you imagine, though? This is peak 2020. There is sad peak 2020, but this is just peak 2020. The Rock, who I remember doing the interview with Jim Ross a couple of years ago. We were talking about how The Rock, had like $7 in his pocket when he first met The Rock. And then The Rock goes from wrestling superstar to Hollywood actor to now the biggest actor in Hollywood. He's got all these shows. He's a producer. And,
he's a movie star.
Right. And now he owns a football league.
The only problem is he's not on Gilligan's Island.
as for what this means, I hope this means the XFL is given a chance that, it was kind of robbed of because of the COVID pandemic. Because the XFL play was actually doing pretty well until the COVID hit and pretty much canceled all of sports for what? 3 or 4 months, only 2 months if you count the UFC.
Okay, wait a minute. Darren Ravel just put a tweet out. Big Ten source, quote, "There's no path forward that medically is safe. Hope we can all realize this as the season should have been called a month ago. No decisions today."
So
that basically means bye-bye college football.
I'd say it's looking very likely we'll have no college football. And, we have, speaking of which, by the way, as I was going to end with the XFL, in terms of bringing it back, I wouldn't do it next year because we don't know what the COVID situation is going to be like. Plus, you're going to have to restart everything. And Vince actually did it right this time when he waited 2 years to do it rather than 1 year after the announcement. Like the first time he did the XFL and what the AAF did. Remember that failure?
Don't remind me. Yes.
So I would wait a couple of years, maybe even wait till the pandemic ends and then do the year after that. And speaking of something we haven't heard in a while, now that we're looking at a potential cancellation of college football, just to end the episode on, I wonder if the NFL is going to do what it first teased a couple of months back, split the Sunday schedule into two and do a Saturday and a Sunday.
They did announce the Monday Night Football announcers. I think it was Steve Levy, Brian Greasy, I think I heard. And
there was that guy, remember last year you were advocating for this guy?
What, Louis Riddick?
Yeah.
He's in the booth now.
Yeah. It's the best booth they've had in a while. Let's face it.
A lot of people are raving. Now they just need football to play again. But okay, I think we rambled. Wow, this is the longest episode we've had in a long time.
Yeah. All right, so let's end it right here. On Albano, this is Nick Morgasen. Remember to follow us at the bottom here at ETB Sports, at Thomas J. Albano, at N Morgasen Radio, and our co-host Nick Federa at Nick Writes Words. Give us a like here on Facebook. Keep tuning into these episodes and live streams.
Oh my God, we're up to episode 50 next week? Holy cow.
Next week's the big episode 50, yes.
Oh, wow. Okay. I got to try and make a surprise happen again.
It's going to be 1 year very soon that we started Empty the Bench.
Good Lord. Well, on that note, I think it's time to say goodbye now.
Yes. So for Nick Morgasen, on Albano, we'll see you next week. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.